Joining us today, we have Paula Gold-Williams, our President and CEO, Rudy Garza, our Chief Customer Engagement Officer, and Jesse Hernandez, our Director of Community Strategy. In the interest of time, Paula is going to give an update on where we are today and what we're seeing, and then we will go through as many people as we can today with one question each. I will ask that we try to limit it to one. Any questions that you have that we don't get to today, my team and I will work with you to make sure that they are answered. And again, we do thank you for joining us and being flexible in the time change. I will turn it over to Paula.
Good afternoon. Thank you again for your patience and being flexible on the time frame here. We are trying to get to as many stakeholders and groups across our community, and then our schedule gets a bit tough at the time. So thanks for your flexibility. Thanks for helping us get information out to the public, and for your thoughtful questions as we keep trying to do these at appropriate times as best we can. The focus I think I want to have today is there are several key points that we are really working on now that we have gotten power restored from the weather event. And I would say that from a CPS Energy perspective, we are managing the normal operations that we would normally have. The aspect of reliability is something that we are in a process of still being thoughtful and mindful about the things, again, that we can do better. The experiences that many people went through and that are still grieving over appropriately, because it was such a tremendously difficult situation, we thoroughly understand. And so we're working through that process, trying to get as much feedback from folks and really being self-critical in terms of what can we do better. There are different things that we can do better. There are things that we can do very much so here in San Antonio at CPS Energy. There are things, though, that we want to be a part of in the conversations at the state and even federal levels. So that process continues. I think those of you who were able to listen in to our board meeting yesterday, lots of sincere and important comments made yesterday that we do appreciate. Our board also voted for a review, an assessment, an evaluation, an audit of our performance in particular to this event, which we absolutely welcome. And the mayor in particular and the city council have also asked for those things. I think there is some work that is going to happen between the board and the council to make sure that that effort is productive and moves swiftly. CPS Energy stands ready to participate in those efforts to help the board and the council get a better view of what happened, and again, help us think about the ways that we need to improve, and then focus on the accountability measures that we have currently and how can we enhance those. We did sit in on a session today with the county. I think the county has some of the same actual interests. And right now, while those efforts are not necessarily coordinated with the city and CPS Energy's board, we stand ready 1,000% to be helpful in the things that they want to know. We do have a great opportunity to partner here locally. That we have partnerships in REAP and our residential assistance program, where we look for ways to provide financial assistance to customers, where we look for ways to help people during COVID and the pandemic. And ultimately, I believe there's a way for us to look at San Antonio and making it more resilient overall, leveraging funds that we can get at the federal and state level, and also looking at design issues relative to how our energy markets and systems work. So again, we are totally open to any work that can be done to improve on our part. The other thing I'd like to also say is we believe and understand the importance of transparency. I do want to highlight from the beginning of these press conferences, I kind of have coined it this financial tsunami that we thought was on the horizon and in fact is here. It was very costly during the event as we were trying to get all the fuel that we could get to power the power plants and keep the system as stable as possible. the prices rose tremendously. I had hoped that we would have a number for all of you on Monday, but as I started working with my team over the weekend, we're going to need some more time. There were deliveries of fuel that were not actually received, and so if there's a fuel not received, there's no bill to pay. There are invoices that we have not yet received, and there's a ton of work that needs to happen from a reconciliation standpoint. As soon as we really have clarity about what that amount is for the community, we will come forward with that, but we just don't have the information today. What I will assure the public is we're not pushing any of those fuel and exorbitant costs on bills at this time. We're not doing anything along those lines. We are accumulating all of the costs, and we have already started conversations at the state and initiating conversations at the federal level. What can be done to help Texans, to help San Antonio in particular, help work through these issues? Again, we didn't create as a community this issue. It was something that was tremendously difficult from an experience standpoint, let alone a financial impact. You are seeing stories outside of San Antonio about bills that are $7,000 and $10,000. And I saw one yesterday that was $16,000. The one thing about municipal power, our relationship, we've been serving this community now for 161 years. We're going to do all we can to make sure that we use every tool in our toolbox to either minimize or eliminate as much of those costs that we experienced last week as we can. Do I know whether we can eliminate them all? I don't know at this point in time, but we're going to try our best not to. If we have to bear any, they typically would get spread. And I have said at least 10 years to 20 years. Just for clarity, the price of power plants, the price of solar farms, the price of wind farms is spread 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And so that's the normal process. It isn't something that we would do out of sequence. That's the way that we make power infrastructure affordable for the community. So it's not something unusual, it's the process. But when we do that, that's when we can make sure that we're investing in the infrastructure that we need to serve all of our community needs and really add on to those over time to get better. So we're going to work on that. We do understand that what has happened is we have cut off, and I think you have mentioned it, we've cut off the Manage My Account portal and the auto pay, but we are also finding customers saying they obviously want more visibility. We are not going to put on any of the exorbitant costs in the system, but we are going to cut on auto pay over the next day or so, and we'll have more information on our website about that exact timing. But we're going to cut on not just the auto pay portion from the perspective of getting the money, but a lot of people don't want to have to write checks or don't want to have to do those manual things associated with the old billing and other issues. We also want people to be able to see their usage in the Manage My Account portal, and that way they can see what's going on. We still have a lot of analysis to do about the detailed bills, of which we're trying to, again, to figure out how can we be most helpful to the people who were most impacted during the storm. And so there's more work to be done, but at least people can see inside their account. What I want to assure you is nobody's being cut off. So no matter what they see, that we have a moratorium and had a moratorium on disconnects since mid-March of last year. And so that really is the stopgap. We still ask everyone for their patience, to give us more time to figure out how to really process through it. But we do want to start resuming the normal processes and practices. I do want to caution everyone to be wary of scammers, people who are threatening to cut off service because of the issues from last week. We are threatening no one. There are scammers always in our system. Please be sure if somebody's calling to threaten you, that is not CPS Energy. We are here to help. We are here to work through this. We are here to apply all our expertise so we can figure out how to manage this next financial tsunami. So those are the big points that I want to share with you today. Thank you.
Paula, we will start first with Joey Palacios.
Joey, thank you for joining us. You'll be unmuted now to ask your question. Hi, thanks for making these so frequent. It's good to have information updated like this. Paula, would you be able to explain to the community as to why ultimately the cost of this crisis is falling on the shoulders of CPS ratepayers? You say that you're looking at trying to find ways to reduce the cost, but why is it that ratepayers are being the ones that will ultimately pay for this emergency?
Really great question. From the standpoint that what we have, actually all the assets that we use to produce power really ultimately belong to the community. We don't have outside investors and one in some other state that's waiting for returns. Everything that we utilize belongs to the community. And so the whole system belongs to the community. To produce power, we must buy fuel. CPS Energy doesn't make money on fuel. It doesn't drop to the bottom line. We buy it and we recover it. We buy it and we recover it. There are no other sources of money for that. There are no other sources of ultimately covering those operating costs. That said, that happens today. PPAs are in the bills, and any overall buying natural gas naturally is in the bill, and buying any type of fuel cost is already in the bill. What happened is what would normally cost a couple of dollars turned into something that cost $400. The market drove those prices up, and we were shocked to see what happened, but we didn't control it. We tried to negotiate down. But this is a problem that we are experiencing, and this is a problem that we're experiencing across the state. And so I would say that the point that we want to do is try to work on how can we get to a better place. We paid what the market needed to be paid so that our customers could have a chance of getting power, the grid staying up, and not to be destabilized. If we had not paid for and made those commitments for fuel, it would have been a much more unimaginable situation. And so at the moment we paid because everybody had to pay, but now we have to reconcile together and driving solutions that get us to a more affordable piece. But once again, that is the cost of actually just trying to operate the system, of which case that's the system that goes through it. And there are no additional, I mean, we have some cash reserves that can cover certain things, but we're already covering the fact that we haven't done disconnects. And we're trying to, since March of last year, and we're trying to keep all of those things going and keeping operations going. This is one more thing that is insurmountable for San Antonio, but we're going to work on it as best we can to get those costs down. And I don't know if we can ever get them eliminated, but we can use every tool in our toolbox to try to address them.
Thanks, Joey. We'll go to Jessica Corso.
Jessica, thank you for joining us. You'll be unmuted now to ask your question.
Hi, Paula. I wanted to ask about the current status of Spruce. I know that there were some issues there with the coal plant. And I also was hoping you could maybe help me understand why that had to be converted to natural gas.
We had a equipment failure that affected the environmental system on the Spruce unit. And so if we couldn't run that as with the capture of environmental emissions correctly at the time, we wouldn't have been able to have any megawatts out of it. So there is an ability to get some megawatts out of it for a short period of time trying to use gas. We do need to finish up a repair on that unit so we can get it back to full capacity. But that ultimately is what happened to that unit. Thank you, Jessica.
Next, we'll go to Brendan Gibbons.
Brendan, thank you for joining us. You'll be unmuted now to ask your question.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you for keeping up with these briefings. They're very helpful. I wanted to ask Paula, do you think that Texas should create a capacity market the way that other states have to ensure that something like this never happens again? Is that kind of the right lever to pull, policy-wise, to protect the state from this? Thank you.
Well, I do think there's quite a bit of merit to considering that, Brendan. I think an energy-only market, again, does some good things in that it really strives to keep people bidding for power at lower and lower levels. And it kind of becomes an Uber economy, right? You can have Uber Black, which is at the premium level, but you can have Uber Pool. And most people move to a very transactional aspect of their service. They only want to pay for exactly for the power that they can get at the moment. And so this is what the energy market ultimately did. And 99% of the time, when you're not stressed at peak, it's going to work well. But I think we had this huge awareness of the impact of trying to keep those prices low and not creating any type of value for capacity. There's a ton of capacity that came on the grid over the last couple of years, which has been great in terms of environmental responsibility, but it normally comes on at a very low cost level, which is great. Again, people say, great, 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 solar's cheap, wind's cheap, that's wonderful, that's wonderful, that's wonderful. But every technology needs to be complemented. And, you know, as you've heard us talk many times, Brendan, that we need to bundle the power sources so we get the best protection. And so there hasn't been a focus on any type of baseload generation. Now, most people hate those types of items because they're fossil fueled, but I still believe that velocity matters, and we can't just jump to not putting more baseload system and having capacity that prevents the types of failure that we had here, prone to weather. I mean, there's nobody, if we all really do believe in climate science and we know we need to fix it and we know we're in the vortex, we could also have even more extreme summers. That said, what did we experience? People had a very personal experience today, not 2030, not 2040, not 2050. Today, last week, even and today, people need power that they can rely on. And so it has to be bundled, and there has to be some element of paying for investments in infrastructure for these experiences. So I think there should be a lot of conversation, Brendan, about what can we do more in design. People assume that the issues that have happened with weatherization are things that were just chosen not to do, or activities. They're actually investments. So you have to invest in the baseload generation. You have to invest in ways to weatherize those units. Rudy and I were talking this morning, just for clarity, in Texas, it's so hot. What we try to do is take the heat off of plants. We want to make sure that they're cooling as much as possible, because if they don't cool, they'll overheat. Even solar panels can get too hot. And so there's certain technologies now that are trying to cool the panels and make them work. That's what's really wrong here, because people assume that it's about weatherization. Weatherization is built to keep the heat in. You need it when the temperatures are freezing, below freezing, and in negative wind chills. But for the most time, even today, you don't need it. So this ability to put more investment in the system, to invest in capacity, to do the right things in terms of resiliency and those kind of things, means there has to probably be a market design change. And the last thing I'll say about that is, the way the system works is prices are kept low all year long. And I know people think that they're high. CPS Energy hasn't had a rate increase except for one 7 years ago. And the full time frame over 11 years, we've had one in 11 years. And so when people are consuming energy, they think those are rate increases. Those are not rate increases. That said, power prices compared to other markets are typically low every single day of the year. And then people get happy. But the system is built to charge premium prices when power's needed most. That's the design of the system. And so when we needed it most as a state last year, the prices shot up astronomical, not just in power, but in fuel. And so that's supposed to tell an operator, go invest in infrastructure. But I think what we're learning here is in that case, there are customers at the end of those high prices. And there was an extreme example of, we got to think about a different design to protect everyone all year round under every circumstance, and then just keep working on it. So wonderful question. I think there's going to be a lot of conversation about that.
Thank you. We'll go to Taylor Petaway next.
Taylor, thank you for joining us. You'll be unmuted now to ask your question. Taylor, you've been unmuted to ask your question.
Okay, we'll come back
Not hearing
to
a
Taylor.
question from Taylor.
Yeah, we'll come back to Taylor if we can. We'll go to Sanford Nowlin next.
Sanford, you'll be unmuted now.
Hi, I'm wondering if CPS prior to last week had a detailed emergency response plan, and if it did have one, what are the plans right now to totally revamp that emergency response plan?
What we call is a business continuity plan associated with, the unimaginable events that could occur. It also includes a pandemic preparedness and relief plan. It also has a crisis communication plan. But Sanford, to your point, I think this past week was such a huge, devastating experience for our community. We're going to have to go back in and re-challenge that and think about the things that we can definitely do, both in the short term and the long term. There's a lot of things I think we can think about. We haven't invested probably as much, and really it's not our typical thing to have these, enough emergency alerts as we could have, and we're going to have to think about that. I also, though, think that we've got to look at it, but I think we've got to look at our partnerships with the city and the county to leverage each other better, and then include better communication, a better focus on why conservation is important all year long, but we have to step up with great clarity and certainty, trying to keep every community warm. So the things that happened last week are going to be huge in us really challenging what we have to make it absolutely better. But we will have to and need to have a San Antonio comprehensive view of all the things that we can leverage and better communication, better conservation, and just overall better functioning of, at least from our perspective, of our utility. And we want to do all our part more in terms of getting to those better things.
Sanford, we'll go to Zach Hedrick next.
Zach, thank you for joining us. You'll be unmuted now to ask your question.
Thank you again so much. Ms. Gold-Williams, for the past couple of days, you said extra costs are not going to be going on to customers' bills at this time. And you mentioned today that CPS Energy may not be able to eliminate all those costs. So does that mean that customers can expect to start seeing those extra costs on their bills in the next few months? And if so, how much?
I don't know, sir. We're still trying to assess, Zach, what that is. So we would be premature in trying to guess, because I think the real point we need to do is try to go back and bring those costs down as much as possible. As soon as we have clarity that we've sharpened our pencil, had all the conversations at the city, state, and federal level, we will definitely do that. And we understand that people are really anxious about what that might be. But I really ask that we think about here in San Antonio, we're not sending out shocking bills because we're trying our best not to make our customers worry about anything more than they already need to, and trying to recover from this issue. So this is our worry and currently our burden to try to do as best we can to get as many people to help San Antonio, as many organizations, agencies to help San Antonio. But this also, I have to say again, is a state problem. I don't think any community is poised to pay the exorbitant costs that have come through in 1 week. And we just don't have all the details that are exact. So again, as soon as we have clarity about it, we will provide it. But we're still waiting for some invoices. Some supplies and deliveries did not get made, so we are not going to pay for any of those things. There's a lot of tightening to do of those numbers. There's a lot of sharpening to do of our pencil. And then there's a lot of asking for help to help San Antonio.
Thank you, Paula. Melissa dropped the audio just for a second, so I'm going to go ahead and take the lead on here. Garrett, you'll be unmuted now to ask your question.
Good afternoon, Paula. Now, you mentioned that this is not unusual, this plan to spread the cost out over a couple of years. But the thing is, you're talking about building of infrastructure and spreading that out over the couple of years compared to what would normally be rolled into a month and a half or 2 months. So can you address that again? Because
yes,
I think a lot of people don't buy that argument.
Okay, very good, Garrett. Let me give you another example that is probably a good one. Back in 2007, we took out about $600 million of bonds, and it was a financial transaction where we had the ability to what we call prepay for fuel, not for fuel that was all going to be produced immediately, but it could have been. We were able to take that full cost, prepay it early, and then spread it over bonds. That said, that transaction was so economical because we were able, it was a complex transaction, we were able to get the benefits of tax versus non-exempt financing. And it really is over a 20-year period, bringing back over some savings, spreading out the impact of the cost over 20 years. So it is not unusual to take certain things like that and spread them again to make them affordable, to try to push those costs down as much as possible. The benefit is we kept our system going. I mean, it was tough and we experienced outages, but we could have entered into a blackout across the state, of which case we wouldn't be doing a press conference right now. I'm not even sure. I can't even imagine what we would be doing. Yes, some other party has received benefits. CPS Energy didn't get the benefit of these increased costs, but we are trying to make sure that we still have access to those energy commodity sources after this. So again, it's a way of trying to figure out how to move forward, but we really will be talking to those suppliers to talk about, is there anything we can get in relief? So I know that nobody likes what has happened, but that is, to the earlier question that Brendan had, that is the current system design, of which case we did not make it, we did not start it, we did not create the bad weather. We just do what we can with the tools that we have to try to make it manageable. Now, I will say the one thing that we like to always stress, again, we have only had one rate increase in 11 years because we understand how much affordability is. But we use all of these financial levers that we can to spread cost on everything we do so that customers can have some of the most lowest bills in the state. We don't, non-promotional standard, ours are amongst the lowest. So again, we know that we can use certain things to help our customers and then keep our access to the market going. So tough stuff, but we're not being arbitrary. We're just trying to use all the tools that we have and that we can control. But we are going to continue to talk to everyone around the state about how difficult this has been to be dealing with this issue. Again, that wasn't created by San Antonio. That wasn't something that they had to expect it. No one expected that. We want to try to get as much relief as possible, but we'll use everything we can to make sure that we're still able to serve customers into the future.
Thank you. And back. We'll go to Liz Hardaway next.
Liz, thank you for joining us. You'll be unmuted now to ask your question.
Hi, thank you. Would CPS consider leaving ERCOT, and is that even possible?
Well, if you're an operator in the state, I mean, currently through legislative structure, no. There are times, many times, where there is such a huge benefit in being connected to ERCOT. Again, if we didn't have a system that laid over the entire state, there would be an ability for us to get power from others on the grid when we might have a problem with, more plants in planned maintenance, and then other issues. These plants are mechanical. They're hundreds of $1 to $1 billion in price, and they take a lot to maintain. And you do have to bring them down for whatever reason, in short-term maintenance or long-term maintenance. The ability to access the market and do it in a planned way, which we would typically do, still allows us to serve CPS Energy's customers all across San Antonio when the power sources are extreme. We're focused on the winter peak, but there's a summer peak. And actually, several times there's multiple summer peaks that happen. There could be a line that trips to a plant, and for us down here or somewhere else, really and truly, here we are talking about Texas is its own grid. That's not necessarily good, because if we were connected to other grids, maybe that would have given us the flexibility. So if we decide that only San Antonio should be relying on itself, I think we would actually also have additional costs, because we'd have to build more capacity to cover us if we were only ourselves. And so this whole thing about having a wider region, more participants to help each other matters. And when things are good, and not, there was a comment about, well, in 2019, we made a lot of money. That was 2019. That money has been reinvested. That has helped us not do a rate increase in 7 years and only one in 11. We're using that money already when we can. We're not going to make that much money in the wholesale market this year. This past year, we made about $45 million. And we think this year it's not going to be that much. But any dollar we do make in the wholesale market is money that San Antonio doesn't have to pay. And so when we're connected to the grid, we have the ability to go out there and help lower the cost for San Antonio. So I just don't think that that's the most prudent thing in disconnecting for the grid. I do think there are things that we need to do for total market structure, reliability, resilience, that we need to redesign to make it better than it is today. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. We'll go to Jay Avila.
Jay, thank you for joining us. You'll be unmuted now to ask your question.
Thank you. Hello, Paula. And
hello, Jay.
State Senator Joan Huffman wrote the law that allows CPS Energy and other agencies to pause the open records law and not respond immediately to open records requests. She told us today that this is not the situation she intended to be covered by the law. CPS Energy's offices are not full of water. They're not inaccessible. You have access to computers. You have access to records. Why is CPS Energy delaying responding to requests for public documents?
Well, even though there's a delay, I want to assure you, Jay, that you will get them. We just got out of a crisis for the entire community that was a reliability crisis that everybody could see. We're now in a financial tsunami, of which case you can't see it, but it's a huge focus for the organization. There's a huge focus going on to look at billing. There's a huge focus in trying to get out and get the words done. We're only having so much time, but I want to assure you, we will get that information out. We just need some more time to do that. All of our resources last week, which we would have used on this effort, were utilized trying to support all the teams that had to be out in the field. But now we have a new crisis. This financial crisis on the state is tremendous. And I know that you all have a huge need to help get information and help us with additional transparency. We're only asking for your consideration so that we can do a good job for you and make sure that we stay focused on customers. I want to assure you, you will get your information.
Thank you, Paula. We have time for one more question, and then we'll recap the conversation. We'll go to Charles with Spectrum News.
Charles, thank you for joining us. You'll be unmuted now to ask your question. Not hearing any audio from Charles, Melissa.
All right. right. Well, thank you everyone again for joining us. I am going to turn it over to Jesse Hernandez, our Director of Community Strategy, to give a brief recap in Spanish for our Spanish listeners.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Muy buenos días y gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Queríamos hablar sobre que seguimos trabajando en el proceso y siendo autocríticos para comprender qué podemos hacer para mejorar. Hay muchas cosas que hemos aprendido durante estos días que han pasado y queremos que estas cosas que hemos aprendido tengan parte de la conversación que vamos a tener a nivel estatal y también a nivel federal. Si pudieran escuchar ayer en nuestra junta directiva, tuvimos muchos comentarios sinceros de nuestros clientes y de la comunidad. Y la junta directiva votó junto con el alcalde de San Antonio a favor de una auditoría. Y CPS Energy le agradecemos y vamos a apoyar absolutamente esa decisión. Y estamos listos para ayudar y enfocarnos en las medidas de responsabilidad que sean necesarias. Hoy por la mañana, Paula también habló con el condado de Bear y también tienen un interés similar. Y igualmente lo vamos a seguir apoyando y estamos listos para ayudar en lo que sea necesario. Últimamente hay una manera de mirar a San Antonio para hacerlo más resistente y buscar opciones, como mencionó Paula, a nivel estatal y federal. Y esas opciones las vamos a seguir buscando para seguir mejorando. También hablamos del tsunami financiero que predijimos que vendría y ya está aquí. Pero necesitamos más tiempo. Sabemos que la comunidad quiere saber sobre los costos. Necesitamos más tiempo para analizar las finanzas y reconciliar las facturas. Tuvimos algunos pedidos, por ejemplo, de que no nos llegaron. Entonces, eso no se tiene que pagar. Por eso tenemos que analizar todas las finanzas para que todo esté calculado bien. Y ya que esté todo calculado, lo vamos a compartir con la comunidad. Hemos iniciado conversaciones a nivel estatal y federal para determinar qué se puede hacer para ayudar a San Antonio. Otra cosa es que habíamos desactivado nuestro sistema de pago automático y nuestro portal de energía, pero queremos informarles que lo vamos a volver a activar y vamos a informarles cuando eso pase en los días que siguen. Y eso va a ayudar a la comunidad para algunos de nuestros clientes que quieren seguir pagando su factura y eso los va a poder ayudar para que sigan haciendo eso, pero también van a poder ver el uso, el consumo de su energía en el portal de Mi Energía. Todavía sabemos que hay mucho por hacer, sin embargo, permitirá a nuestros clientes que puedan revisar su cuenta. Queremos informarles que nadie que CPS Energy no está desconectando, no hemos desconectado a nadie desde marzo del año pasado y eso va a seguir así. Y los cargos todavía los estamos calculando, son las facturas que salen no incluyen los cargos de esta temporada invernal que pasamos. Y también, por último, queremos advertir a las personas y a la comunidad que por la causa de lo que ha estado pasando hay muchos estafadores que están llamando a nuestros clientes amenazándolos con las desconexiones. CPS Energy nunca va a llamar a nuestros clientes para amenazarlos con una desconexión y le pedimos a nuestros clientes que estén atentos y que no caigan víctimas a los estafadores porque sí están haciendo estas llamadas. Gracias.
Thank you, Jesse. We'll go to Rudy Garza next.
Thank you, Melissa. As Paula has reiterated, we've spent a lot of time in the aftermath of the winter event last week, continuing to ensure that our customers have confidence that our billing system and the information that we're presenting to our customers reflects, not the financial impact of this event, but what they've come to expect from us in terms of our rates and the bills that they're used to seeing. So, as Paula said, we've got work to do to start to bring some of those systems back online now that we've had time to really focus in on making sure that they're accurate and that customers can have confidence in the information that they're looking at. So this week you will see messaging going out to our customers, letting them know that they will be able to see their Manage My Account system soon. We're going to reach out to customers who are on auto pay and make sure that they know what our intentions are with respect to the auto pay system. And of course, anybody has any questions about any of their bill, aspects of their bill that they have questions about, they can call us. But just be rest assured that all of this activity was really intended to reflect our commitment to producing accurate bills that do not reflect any of the potential financial impact of this event. So as always, appreciate your patience. Again, this is San Antonio. We're in this together, and we look forward to to continuing to earn your trust back one day at a time as we move into the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Rudy.
Again,
we'll turn it over to Paula.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, I want to thank you all for being here. You asked great questions. We appreciate, again, our ability to share them with you. We really, understand that in many cases, news is about sound bites. We're working through this, though, not in terms of a sound bite. We really, really are digging in as best we can to recover, as Rudy said, work on the trust that needs to be rebuilt, and sincerely continue to use every tool in our toolbox to help San Antonio get away from this issue and avoid other catastrophes. And so thank you again for the ability to report what we're saying, to report it comprehensively, balanced, and fair. It means a lot. There are a lot of people who only have a little bit of information, and we are really trying to get the important words out there and let people know we hear them, and all of their input is important. You can help us help heal this community, and your pen is very powerful, and we appreciate any assistance you can give us in that way. Thank you so much. Have a great day.